I think that morning was probably, the greatest victory of my life, because although I grew up in a Christian family and, had this discipline of reading the Bible every day, I think that morning I gave my life to Christ, and I think I just understood the fullness of, his death on the cross. And I think when you live, I suppose generally we live in a performance-based culture, and I think as an Indian, particularly in South Asia, where results are such a high priority, I think I realized my worth had become so much about how I did as a cricketer or whether I performed or didn't perform. And I think I realized I moved away also from just trusting God with the journey. And I think that morning I committed, my life to Christ. And also, from there on, it's been a different journey, but I think it's given me perspective to life, and it's probably made everything else, I suppose.
Welcome to another episode of Rack the Brain podcast. Today, we sit down with a cricketer who's lived the dream on 2 continents and is now shaping the next generation of champions. Our guest today is Ryan Ninan, a former Indian domestic cricketer who played in the IPL with Kings 11 Punjab and then made a debut with Royal Challengers Bangalore. He also represented Goa and Karnataka in India's domestic circuit. He has shared the field with legends such as Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli, MS Dhoni, Anil Kumble, etc., competed at elite levels, and now continues his passion in Australia through Fortitude Cricket, mentoring aspiring cricketers on discipline, resilience, and excellence. Ryan's journey is a masterclass in grit, transition, and staying hungry for growth. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you today?
I'm really excited to have you on the show, and I really wanted your story to come out to the audience.
Yeah, I know we've been discussing about this for a while, but I'm glad we've been able to find a time that works for both of us.
Exactly. I would like to start with your background. Your parents don't come from the cricketing fraternity.
Yeah.
So can you take me through your childhood and how did finally cricket happen to you?
Sure. So, I come from an academic background. So, my parents both come from Kerala originally. My dad moved to Bangalore, I think, around the mid-70s for his PhD. He's an environmental economist and has authored about 10 books in his subject. And my mom's a maths teacher, and then she got married to my dad, like most Indian parents from the 80s, 90s. I had an arranged marriage, and she moved in the mid-80s after marriage. And then I was born in Trivandrum, but then grew up in Bangalore. And then my mom pretty much, I suppose, centered her life around bringing me up. And then she eventually became a maths tutor. So I suppose teaching and, a professor in environmental economics, like that was the type of parents I had. And pretty much I think academics became a huge priority in my life. Also childhood, I think, growing up in the 90s, like a lot of us young kids, I think, I may sound old when I say this to kids today, but I think we were fortunate to grow up before the age of the internet. So I think a lot of my childhood memories were from, going to school, coming back, playing outside. And I think my mom really encouraged me to play outside after school. And I think that just became a norm for me, especially, I think, around 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. I remember that was my window to play after school. So from there on, I just started playing. Like, I wouldn't say I was contemplating of playing for the country. I think like every young kid, like I keep saying, cricket's a religion in India, and everyone kind of aspires to play for the country, but I don't necessarily say that I had a dream of playing for the country back then. I think one of my early dreams as a kid was to be a pilot, because I incredibly, loved mathematics and anything to do with flying, etc. But I think as I started playing in the streets, and then I think around the early 90s, everyone, I think, started to get an idea of Sachin starting to do well. I think he made his debut around in 1989 versus Pakistan, and then the era of Star TV. I don't know if you remember back then, like everyone could start subscribing to Star TV, and that start I remember waking up early to watch games, especially when India played New Zealand and Australia. And I think from there on, just started to fall in love with the game. And I think I was very fortunate that I think in 92, my parents moved suburbs and rented this place in front of this massive oval, or rather a park rather in India called ABC Park in Vivek Nagar in Bangalore. And I think from there on, I'm sure you're familiar with Indian parks. Like you'll see 10, 15 games of cricket happening simultaneously. And I think with that window to play in the evening, I just started going and playing with all the neighbors and made a lot of friends there. And then as I started getting better at street cricket, as I would say, some of the older guys would start giving me opportunities. So that's my early memory of playing cricket on the streets. I think I never really picked up the cricket ball till I was about 13.
13.
Yeah.
And I just want to circle back to your parents were academics.
Yeah.
My parents also, I come from the academic family. And in my times, the obvious choice was either you become an engineer or a doctor or at best chartered accountant.
Yeah.
What was the story in your house?
Sure. Yeah, I think, so as I mentioned, I come from Kerala, and obviously academics were a high priority. And as you know, I generally say Malayalis take pride in the fact that generally their children end up being either doctors or in the engineering field. So I think that was pretty much the goal for me, for my parents as well. I think because I was very good at mathematics, physics, and chemistry, thanks to my mom, and just generally, I think I always enjoyed doing the subjects in school. So I think at about I think it was year 9, as I suppose I started playing through the school, because in year 8, as I mentioned, I picked up the cricket ball, and it was through my school teacher that, he was like, oh, Ryan's got a cricketing talent, that I got an opportunity, and my mom was like, okay, we'll see how it goes. But then in year 9 and 10, as you know, the equivalent of the HSC is your ICSE or your CBSE, SSLCs. I was in an ICSE school called Frank Anthony public school. And at that point of time, I think whilst cricket was going well, I think there was a level of, okay, my mom was also like, okay, you're getting close to your board exams. So there was always this level of, okay, you know what, cricket's not going to be something I pursue professionally. It would generally be okay, I'm going to go down this path of being an engineer, and if cricket works out, it works out. And I didn't probably know the route you'd take to actually becoming a state cricketer, or even probably going beyond that. So academics was always a high priority, and especially with my dad, because obviously he is pretty established in his field. I don't think anyone anticipated that I'd move down the path of actually becoming a sportsman. So yeah, I think it's helped, because I think it's always been at the back of my head that I have to also grow, in terms of my education outside of cricket. So yeah.
And I see many kids, they start, let's say, as batsmen, but over the years, they realize they are better bowlers. What is your story?
Yeah, sure. So coming back to school, so when I got my initial opportunity for my school team, I started off as a medium pacer, and that didn't last too long. I think when I was transitioning from year 8 to year 9, I remember we had a summer camp, and my coach, Harida there, saw that my ability to bowl spin was probably better than my ability to bowl pace, because I would generally tire out after 2 or 3 overs, and then started off bowling spin from there on. And then I think it was after year 10, after my board exams, I remember I just told my mom, you know what, I'm just going to put my head down and work hard this year. And I joined an academy called the Karnataka Institute of Cricket, which is a pretty world-renowned academy now. And so joined the academy and just started training pretty regularly. So from there on, pretty much, I think off-spin started taking priority, and then got my first crack with the under-16 Karnataka team that year. But I think looking back, I probably didn't make that shift from medium pace to off-spin. I would have entered the IT field pretty early when I think about it.
You mentioned about under-16 Karnataka.
Yeah.
How did your first games go? Did you leave an impression that, yes, you were cut out for that? Were you noticed in those matches, or there were a few learnings?
Yeah, so I think, that year, I think when I put my head down to start working hard, I knew I was going to probably get an opportunity with the the zonal comp, which is like the district comp where you actually got to do well in those games to, I suppose, put your foot forward for a state call-up. So got my first state call-up. I think it was a day after my 16th birthday. And I still remember my debut was against Kerala, which is, I keep saying, like another home state of mine because I was born there. And had a really good first season. Like I think that pretty much put me on the cricketing map in Karnataka. And I was very fortunate to get an opportunity with Karnataka. Looking back now, because it's probably the second strongest state, I would say, in the country, is purely in terms of the number of Ranji trophies they've actually brought home. So I got that opportunity, did well. And then from there on, things pretty much started to take off and had a steep rise from there on.
And then what was the next stage of your...
Sure. Yeah, so I think Karnataka was just, as I mentioned, a steep rise. Between 2001 to 2007, I just went through this phase of actually looking back, it feels like it was a dream because I went through the under-16 Karnataka side and then did well. So then got invited to be at this Cricket Club of India camp, which pretty much brought the best cricketers from the country together. So every state would send about 2 to 3 cricketers in the under-14 and under-16 category. And so I was sent from Karnataka along with another really close mate of mine, our Jonathan, and we went along with, I think, 2 other under-14 Karnataka cricketers, but only Jonathan and myself got selected in the 20. So it was 20 kids from across the country that were picked to obviously go through a 2-month camp in Mumbai. And that was probably one of my best experiences of national academies as well. But yeah, 2 months, 20 first. And in fact, a lot of those kids from that camp also went on to probably play first class, IPL. And then probably the one guy who everyone knows from that camp is Ravindra Jadeja. Probably the only one who went on to play for India from there.
Well, he was
and he was 13. I remember, like, yeah, it was he was incredibly talented back then, great fielder. So it was a great camp, and we were coached by the late Hanuman Singh, the late Vasu Paranjpe, and Ari Contractor, who's still alive. I think, but he's about 90 plus, and these are all established coaches, and probably some of my fondest coaching experiences as well. So yeah, from there on, then under-17 Karnataka, again another camp at CCI Mumbai, and then from there on, like, I had a breakthrough year in 2003, and then started getting picked in the national cricket academies, and then just did back-to-back seasons of, I think, attending 4 National Cricket Academy camps. And so when you attend the National Cricket Academy camp or get called up to that, it's obviously through your consistent performances. And I think being a Karnataka player, as I mentioned, which is a strong state, your performances kind of get magnified because selectors or the national selectors always keep an eye out on players from the stronger states. At least back then they did. So I think I was very fortunate to do NCA camps every year from 2003 till about 2006. And yeah, I even got my, in fact, breakthrough into the senior state setup. So like how Australia have contracted state players, we had something called a Ranji Trophy probable list. So you had your best 25 from among the senior age group get picked to obviously prepare for the Ranji Trophy season. So I got my call up, in fact, just 2 years out of school when I was about 17 and a half. So yeah, I felt like things started to, I had a steep rise out of school and things were just starting to go pretty up, quite quickly.
So I can feel there was a lot happening in your life at that young age.
Yeah.
What was happening with your studies?
Sure, yeah. So as I mentioned, I think studies was always going to be a high priority in my home. And I think hats off to my mum, because my dad started traveling, in fact, a lot when I was 4 years old, and he started living overseas a lot for different stints. So my mum pretty much played that role of mum and dad. So I think with every year and the opportunities that came around, I think she found, I suppose, that level of faith and confidence to allow me to move forward with it, and actually, based off my performances, started to, understand how I was feeling about my journey. So I still did my year 11 and 12 in science. And as I started preparing for my CET exams, the engineering exams you prepare for in India, I think in my year 12, when I started actually realizing that cricket would actually require a lot more time and I would probably find it hard to actually manage engineering, because there was a teammate of mine who was a year ahead, and I realized he was missing important games. And also when they were, because they had the semester scheme, I think there were moments where he would find it hard to manage both. And I think just looking at his example for me, I was like, okay, maybe I should just pursue an undergraduation in accounting and finance. So then did my bachelor's in accounting and finance because for me, I just felt with numbers, it would be a lot more easier for me. And also the university I joined, Jain University, was starting to actually have this influx of athletes from Bangalore and across the country come there and study because they wanted to stand out as a sports university. So when I got admission there, they were obviously well aware that I was playing for Karnataka already. So their requirement was all that, go out there, play for Karnataka. About 45 days in the lead up to your exams, we'll send you all the study notes. And I think for me, I knew I'll always study. I had a pretty much a rigorous schedule because my mom was very organized and I always wanted to show her that I was studying. So I knew I would always spend a window studying. So I did my bachelor's in accounting and finance and then wound up with that in 2006. And then asked her if I could have a 2-year break before I pursue my master's, which she was quite happy for me to have.
Look, that is where the support of parents come in, right? I'm just trying to imagine. Today, cricket, I know parents who would say, my child just wants to focus full time. And I know many kids who just finished with their HSC and they're full time focusing on cricket. In your times, it was not easy.
Yeah.
More so because the family you come from, and then obviously your relatives and friends ask you, hey, what's your son doing?
Yeah.
What happened in those 2 years when he took a break?
Sure. Yeah. So 2005 to 2007 was, like I said, I think a fantastic phase for me. Like I said, 2001 to 2007, I had this steep rise, but 2005 to 2007 particularly, because 2005 I'd been picked in the emerging India camp, which was the best under 22 players who got to train at the NCA, and I was just 19. I was only one of 2 spinners along with Pragyan Ojha, and then soon after that got to tour Australia with the Karnataka senior side, and I remember we came and beat New Zealand A, which had like Shane Bond, Jacob Oram, all these, accomplished international players, plus a couple of Commonwealth Bank Academy sides from Australia, which also had some, I suppose, soon-to-be Australian internationals. So had a couple of, really good call-ups, and then had a decent season with Karnataka. And then the year after my undergrad, I ended up playing for Assam, but also ended up signing up with a management company. And as a young kid, you're just 20, having someone manage you. So I signed up with this company called Go Sports, where I, in fact, met my manager back then and now kind of mentor, Nandan Kamath. So I think having someone manage your cricket where you get to actually just focus completely on cricket and have someone look after your, I suppose, contracts and other affairs was really like a big step for me. And then at the end of 2006, I think I signed up with Nike. I signed up a commercial contract with them, which was great. And I think they were just coming into the Indian market. And then 2007 was, like, I think a dream season, probably my best state season overall, where I played under 22 cricket. I had about 100 plus wickets just in state cricket alone. And then that was the year the late V.B. Chandrasekhar, who was the Indian selector back then, had also wrote an article in the paper saying that we're actually looking at him as someone who could potentially play for the country. And it was strange how, and he mentioned it's strange how his state team hasn't played him in the senior setup as yet. So there was a lot of good things happening during that time. But then also it meant outside of cricket or outside of the cricket season, or if there was not much cricket happening, I had a bit of idle time where I would pretty much just keep training or hang out with my friends. But I think everything became about cricket then. So yeah, I would say there was starting to develop idle time outside of cricket, which I think looking back, I think I wish I had done something during that time. But yeah.
I'm just trying to visualize, there is a lot happening in your life, but still, and you have a team, but is it taxing? You need to travel a lot.
Yeah.
You're pretty much on road. And obviously, every time there's a match, no matter how mentally strong you are, there is still some element of, I don't know if I should use the term anxiousness or nervousness. What was the thought process during those times? Or you were like, let's do it. You didn't think much about it. When you recall, when you go back, do you think what was going on in your mind? What was shaping you? And how did you deal with all the stresses of travel and the games?
Yeah, I don't think as a young boy, I thought too much of it. I think I was just so happy that I was playing for Karnataka and, getting to live my dream. I was probably living away from home 6-7 months a year, especially from 2003 onwards when I started doing these regular India camps. I would probably be home for maybe 3-4 months at best. And obviously it was back and forth, but then there were camps where you had 2-month stints. So I don't think the thought of being away from home ever really bothered me, because I was getting to live my dream with my mates. And the majority of my friends after school ended up being my cricket mates. So I think for me at that point in time, I never paid too much attention to how I was feeling, or whether I was homesick, or even the pressure of sport. I think I always saw pressure as a privilege. And I think for me, being a boy, I think in school, like I don't think anyone anticipated I'd go down the path of cricket, because everyone probably thought I'd probably go into the academic side of things. So for me, I felt it was like, oh yeah, I'm up for this. I'm up for the opposition. I'm up for this ride, because I know everything was probably against me as a school kid. So I don't think I thought of it too much as a young boy. And especially that chapter between 2001, 2007, 2008 was, I think, a dream phase. And yeah, it was also the pre-social media age. So I think we had a lot of fun as a group as well, because we'd go out for dinner, we'd get to know each other, and it was simple fun. Yeah.
So you talked about, this phase of your life, you were training from your mates during those years, who then went on to play along with you at at international level.
Sure. So Robin Uthappa, in fact, he played the first T20 World Cup that India won, and we were we did pretty much most NCAs together. We went to college together. He got that first breakthrough ahead. So he, I think, got picked for India in 2006, I think in our final year of undergrad. And then from there on, he was, I think, part of the Indian setup for a couple of years. He was part of the T20 setup and stuff. So he got that first breakthrough, and probably should have played for India a lot more. I mean, especially the talent he had as a young kid. We always thought he'd probably play for India for a long time. Unfortunately, it didn't work, but then established himself as a great IPL cricketer and stuff. So he was the first one. There were a couple of other cricketers who, in my age group, like there was Gaurav Dhiman, who for those of us who saw him back then, knew he was probably going to be $1 million baby. Unfortunately, things didn't work out for him. So he played 2 junior World Cups, which happens very rarely. But then from there on, there were just certain personal setbacks, and he's back playing, which is good. But these two were playing for the country. And then a few batches below, I think there were guys starting to move forward. I think there was the KL Rahuls, who's obviously captaining India now in the series, and Mayank Agarwals and the Karun Nairs, who I think about 5-6 years younger to me, but then they were starting to move forward. And there were a couple of other guys, but amongst my batch, it's probably only Robin who went on to play for the country. A lot of the other guys played, I suppose, first-class cricket for a while, and then IPL. Yeah, pretty much. And of course, and this is purely from my state, of course, other states and the guys I did the NCA with, like a lot of them went on to play for India and India as well.
Fascinating. Many children might be carried away by the newfound freedom of being on their own.
Yeah.
Traveling.
Yeah.
How did you manage to put that discipline hat on while you were away? Was it hard?
Sure.
You know what I mean? So when you are traveling, when you are going places, you have the freedom to wake up at any time. You can sleep at any time. Many youngsters are not able to move to the higher levels because somewhere that discipline is lost on the way.
Yep.
Is it the right statement for me to make, or you feel that pretty much people around me had a vision and they were quite driven, and which is why they made it to the bigger levels?
Yeah, I think and I think I don't necessarily agree with that, because I think when you're traveling, especially when you're traveling with your state team or when you're part of a junior NCA camp or CCI camp, you actually have a proper schedule that starts from about 6:30 in the morning. So I think that really helped with discipline or organization or time management, which has certainly been, I suppose, valuable lessons I've been able to take into other aspects of my life. But you have a rigorous schedule through the day. Like as an example, like when I was in the NCA, like we pretty much had to be at training at 7 in the morning. So we lived pretty much in the stadium. But 7 in the morning, you'd have a fitness session from about 7 to about 8:15. Then you'd break for breakfast. And then you'd have your next session start at about 9:45. So you had like an hour of a turnover to just rest, do whatever else you want to. And then 9:45, you generally catch up for a skill session, or it would be a fielding session. So if you had a fielding session in the morning, then you'd have a skill session in the evening. More often than not, you'd have a skill session in the morning just because skill involves a lot more hours. And then you'd break for lunch. some would take a nap. Like I'm a big fan of an afternoon nap. So I would have an afternoon nap and then before, the alarm's on because you have your next session in the afternoon about 3:34. So generally the afternoons, every now and then we'd have a nutrition session in the NCA or some sort of lecture just to ease into the afternoon. And then we'd wind up with fielding or yoga or a swimming session or something. So we generally have like a proper schedule from like 7 till 6 in the evening. And then you get the second half, the back end of the day to just relax. And I think for us, because we were Bangalore boys, because the NCA would happen at Bangalore, for us, it was home to us. So more often than not, you'd end up taking the other boys who were from interstate out to Brigade Road, MG Road, a few other places and stuff. So yeah, so we had a pretty strict schedule. And I think that certainly has helped. I think in India, as you know, in India, things kind of start early as well.
And can I say, you made me feel that the journey was pretty simple, a linear equation. With a heavily populated country, I'm sure you would have done something which made an impact. What was that? Was there your, distinct bowling style or an all-rounder? What, in the hindsight, what made an impact on the selectors?
Sure.
Coming to you as Ryan, what was that?
Yeah, it's hard. I think definitely my bowling skills, because that's what I got picked for more often than not. I think I was a traditional spinner. My ability to flight the ball and I suppose let the ball talk. But I don't think, like as I said, as a young boy, I don't think I would have imagined I would have been a cricketer. I think because a lot of my cricket I learned was from the streets and particularly at Vivek Nagar. And I think, as I mentioned, about 13, 14, 15, when I got to play for the school, it's not like I anticipated there would be a journey from there on where I'd go on to play state cricket. And then after school, I think that's where, when I look back and, I always keep telling the young kids here as well, like the hours were still put in, even though it was on the streets with tennis ball cricket and it was the game sense I was learning there. I was watching a lot of cricket back then. And then as I started getting into an organized setup, I just started playing with every other cricketer there who wanted to play for the country. And I think for me, that was probably very helpful. So yeah, I think just a combination of all those aspects. I think just being in an environment where everyone wants to play for the country and everyone's, I suppose, got that same vision and goal. And then, I was fortunate that I suppose it was just God's plan for me. I had breakthroughs come around at the right time. And then at 17, the senior call-up came up. And then I was amongst these, I suppose, incredible stars who had played for the country in the 90s, like Kumble Dravids and Srinaths, who were still part of the Ranji Trophy setup when I got in. And then there was also these domestic giants who a lot of them I thought could have played for the country. So for me, I was learning from all of them. So that was naturally, I suppose, organically helping my development as well. So yeah, I wouldn't per se put one or two things, but I think it was just God's plan. And I think looking back, it was just the hours I would play cricket every day on the streets.
You're being humble.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes, when you look back purely from a population standpoint, like I can't believe it happened. I think in my cricketing community in India, I still feel sometimes that, I failed, I haven't made it because all of them have gone on to play X number of first class games or other, probably India and one, especially the guys who I did the NCA with. In fact, most of them gone on to play the country and probably that impacted probably a hard phase in my life. But praise God that it actually happened when it did, and very fortunate to have had some fun experiences.
And what happened after 2008?
Yeah, so I think 2008 to about 2012, like obviously it was a good period in patches. Like I obviously had IPL contracts, which looking back now, a lot of people only know me for those IPL contracts. But for me, I think it was a very challenging time because I'd finished junior cricket by then. So even though there were temporary setbacks with the senior setup, and there were a couple of like tough moments along the way where I missed out on, the Under-19 World Cup or broke my finger just before before the England Under-19 team was coming to India. But then I think that never really stopped me from still training and looking forward to the next tournament and competing. But then I think 2008, I'd finished underage cricket. So there was obviously this onus of, I have to play first class cricket, otherwise I'm going to miss out on 4 or 5 months of cricket. And also it was a time when, like I said, because I'd done these junior NCAs, all these guys that I was doing junior NCAs with, like I think the spinners particularly, like Piyush Chawla had gone on to play for India, I think by 2006 or 7. Pragyan Ojha had started to knock on the doors of Indian cricket around then. So these other spinners and these other guys were starting to either play India A or they were kind of establishing themselves in first class cricket, but I hadn't made my first class debut as yet. So that started to, play on my mind a bit, also given the idle time that I was having outside of cricket. And I think from there on, I think this questions and the frustrations, etc., started to make me, question my system and whether, cricket was actually going to work out for me, etc. So from there on, I think a pattern of thinking started where I started doubting myself also a bit more. And then, I would say, even though I had IPL contracts, so 2008, I made my debut for Goa, which, I don't think back then I would have anticipated I'd end up making my first class debut for Goa. But then what happened was it was my 5th or 6th season with the Karnataka senior setup, but I hadn't made my debut as yet. And I think in those 2-3 years between 2006 and 8, there were coaches from interstate who had seen me in the NCA, who had crossed paths with, well, they were like, why don't you come and play for us? And in India particularly, like unlike Australia, you don't necessarily move interstate when you're a young cricketer because it's seen as you being disloyal to your state. So it's not something I wanted to do, but then with that curiosity of wanting to know what's first class cricket like I'm actually good enough because I'm waiting for it. Everyone else is playing. In 2008, I remember I was traveling with the Karnataka state side for this tournament called the Buchi Babu, which was in Chennai. And you generally have a few preseason tournaments which you want to play as a team together before you start your Ranji Trophy. And again, the first 2 games, I found myself just carrying drinks. And for me, I just wanted to get an answer from the coach, like, what's happening? Are you guys going to be giving me an opportunity this year or not? Because I'd come on the back of a few good seasons. And he just didn't give me that assurance. And in the meantime, Goa was starting to show interest, and Kerala was also starting to show interest because I was a local boy in Kerala. Because I was born there, I could qualify as a local. But then Goa just seemed like the right option because the coach was a former Karnataka player back then, Dodda Ganesh, and he was like, come here, we need a spinner, you can bat, and plus you'll get 5 games for sure. So I think just that particular opportunity seemed, I suppose, I felt it was pretty much within grabbing distance as opposed to trying to possibly play for Karnataka with that hope that, maybe I'll get 1 or 2 opportunities. So the story around it was pretty interesting when 2008, my opportunity came around because I knew I was going to get 1 game in the Buchi Babu for Karnataka, and that was the 3rd last league game. In fact, Rahul Dravid played that game as well. And it was against Tripura. And I still remember waking up that morning and my roommate Appana was there, and I knew he was probably sitting, or he must have played as well. And I was like, I'm going to get 1 opportunity. If I get a 5-for today, I'm going to walk out on a high. If I don't get a 5-for, then I'll fight it out here. And I ended up getting 6 wickets that day against Tripura. And I was like, oh, wow. I was like, maybe this is a sign that I need to move. I know looking back, it probably, ticked a couple of people off because I came with the team, but then I walked off after that game. But then after that game, pretty much, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to try playing for Goa this year. At least they're giving me 5 games. And yes, got to make my first class debut that year. And in fact, Goa had a pretty good season because it was the first time they entered the semi-finals of the plate championships. So you have the elite and the plate group in India and the Ranji Trophy, and we entered the plate championships. And we played, in fact, Bengal in the semi-final in Delhi. And it was meant to be Saurav Ganguly's last first-class game. So, pretty much had a reasonably decent season with them, and had a good last game, especially against Bengal. But from there on, I think, somehow missed out on the List A team for Goa that season, strangely enough. And then came back to Karnataka. And then 2009, sat the full season with Karnataka on the bench. I was just carrying drinks after drinks and drinks and drinks. And then didn't play a single game in the Ranji Trophy. And then played the last List A game, which I did reasonably well. And then IPL came around by then. So because of my performance with Goa, I think that last game against Bengal, because at that point of time, it was meant to be Saurav Ganguly's last first-class game. I think my performance that game kind of got magnified as well, and then signed an IPL contract after that. So I had 4 IPL contracts after that. But I think between IPLs, I was pretty much being benched a lot, and then had a couple of seasons where I had bad injuries, which meant I missed about 4 or 5 months of cricket as well. So I think that started to weigh me down mentally. And then I think eventually in 2011, pretty much I think I reached this point in August, which I had a disc injury, but then I think the frustrations of waiting around also kind of got to me. And I was like, where am I moving? I'm not moving for my cricket. I haven't bothered moving forward with my education. Like, am I actually going to play anymore going forward, or is cricket kind of for me? And then eventually it reached the saturation point. And I think on October 1st, 2011, it was the night before we were meant to leave for a pre-season state tour. So the entire Karnataka probable list was meant to actually, I think, drive to Shimoga in the morning. And I went out with my mates the previous day just because I was like, I want to hang out with them before I actually leave on another tour. But somehow I came back that night after hanging out with my friends, and I was like, where am I at in my life? Like, I have these IPL contracts. I've had a reasonably decent cricket career where I've got to play for Karnataka. I'm part of the setup, but I'm not where I want to be anymore with cricket, and I'm actually really enjoying the game. Am I really enjoying life? And I felt I had all these materialistic perks from an outside perspective, but I just don't want it anymore. I started to actually feel like, okay, I've had my time. And it's funny, I woke up, I actually didn't sleep that night, actually, coming to think of it. Like, I was just staring at the ceiling, and my mum knocked at the door at 5 a.m. and she was like, aren't you getting ready to leave? Like, don't you have to catch the bus at about 6:30? Because the team bus was going to leave from the stadium. And I somehow just didn't have the strength to land up or even go. Like, I just told my mom, I think I've had enough. Like, I just don't feel like I want to play cricket anymore. Like, it's just, I feel I'm done. And then, strangely enough, like that morning, with tears in her eyes, it was the first time she said, no, I want you to play now. I think you should do what you need to do, but I think you should go back and play. But yeah, I did end up making it to that tour, and I knew it would probably hamper my selections for that season, but I think it was probably, despite the heartache and pain and the, I suppose, build up of frustration that I was feeling, I think that morning was probably, I think, the greatest victory of my life, because although I grew up in a Christian family and, had this discipline of reading the Bible every day, like, I think that morning I gave my life to Christ, and I think I just understood the fullness of, his death on the cross. And I think, when you live, I suppose generally we live in a performance-based culture. And I think as an Indian, particularly in South Asia, where results are such a high priority, I think I realized my worth had become so much about how I did as a cricketer or whether I performed or didn't perform. And I think I realized I moved away also from just trusting God with the journey. And I think that morning I committed, my life to Christ. And also, from there on, it's been a different journey, but I think it's given me perspective to life, and it's probably made everything else, I suppose, easier to look at. So still, pretty much from there on, still had another IPL contract, but then I still had like a full season, because probably didn't play those games where I had to, wait around for the IPL to come around, but at least had a newfound perspective to why I'm actually doing this, and that at the end of the day, cricket's just what I do. It's not who I am.
Yeah, this reminds me my interview with another guest. You might know him. He's the director of a renowned cricket club. He summarized this really well. He said, this is the purpose. You need to figure out what is your purpose.
Yep.
And that awakening can happen at any point of time. You contracted with the Kings 11 Punjab and Royal Challengers Bangalore. What was the period when this was happening?
As in the frustrations, or you mean when the IPL happened? Sure. So I think so 2008 was when the IPL started.
Yeah.
Okay, and before that, I'm not too sure if you've heard of the ICL, which was the league which Kapil Dev set up.
Yes.
So I was still in my early 20s, and I still remember very clearly when the ICL came around, there were a couple of opportunities that came around, but thankfully for me, I had slowly started to build this mentor circle of, I suppose, people who are 10 years ahead of me. So Sridharan Sriram was a teammate of mine at DY Patil, and he had, I think, just signed up with the ICL then. In fact, he coached Australia pretty recently as well. So he mentioned, he was like, oh, Machan, I don't think you should be taking it up as a young cricketer. Your goal should be clearly about playing for the country. And I think so that's why at that point of time, didn't take that direction. And then a few months later, we heard about the IPL, Lalit Modi starting. So the first year in 2008, I was on standby with Bangalore, so got to train the entire time with them. And during that 2008 IPL, also there was an incident between a couple of cricketers in Mumbai, like Harbhajan and Srishant, which meant they both got land. And that meant I got a call up to Mumbai to actually play a trial game. And that was fantastic because I got to share the park with Sachin Tendulkar that day in that practice game, and had a decent outing as well. I still remember clearly I got Sean Pollock and Dominic Thornley, who's actually from New South Wales, out. But it was a great experience. Like, I'm obviously getting to share the field with, a childhood hero, pretty much the god of Indian cricket as everyone terms it. But that was fantastic. And then, as I mentioned, that semi-final against Goa, which was tipped to be Sourav Ganguly's last first-class game. I performed in that game because I remember I got about 88 not out when we were 35 for 5. But then that performance, because everyone knew it was Saurav's last game, the media coverage was a lot higher. So that performance kind of magnified, got magnified a bit more. And from there on, got an opportunity with Kings 11 Punjab. So 2009 and 10, I was contracted with Kings 11 Punjab. I got to travel to South Africa because the IPL didn't happen in India 2009. And then 11 and 12 came to my home franchise, Bangalore. Royal Challengers Bangalore, yeah.
What has been your best performance in all these games so far? How many maximum wickets and maximum runs?
Sure. As in across my Karnataka and IPL.
Oh, that's international, yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, I've had a couple of really good performances. I think one was against East Zone in the Zonal Academy comp. I think I got a 7 for 80 odd. And ended up doing really well across that tournament. And then I think I got a 7 for against Kerala in the under-22s in 2007. And I've got a few 5 fors and 6 fors as well. But those two 7 fors are probably my best. I don't think I've ever got an 8 for in life. Batting-wise, purely from a state standpoint, I think I've got an 88 not out against Bengal, and then had an 80-plus odd game in against Tamil Nadu in a preseason comp. But of course, I've got a few hundreds at club level and then in preseason stuff. But I would say more as a bowling all-rounder who could be a finisher. But those are my best performances at a representative level.
Ryan, they say that legends are not made on the field.
Yeah.
They're made in the dressing room. What are some of the memories you have of, some learnings or the pep talk, something that you recall was really inspiring for you, any of the formats?
As in individually or from other players?
When you were in that, then obviously you would have some legend or some famous person talking about things that really inspire you and make you believe that, yes, I'm made for doing and giving my best out there in the field. Are there some memories that you want to highlight or share?
Sure. I think the first one was just Anil Kumble, because I think Anil Kumble was like a cricketing mentor for me growing up in Karnataka. But then prior to that, he was in fact the first ever international cricketer I had this opportunity to meet. It was, I think, back in the day, I don't know if you remember it, he got 6 for 12, I think, against West Indies in the early 90s. I think it was the Titan Cup. And so I got to go and meet him because he was having this meet and greet at the Titan showroom in Fifth Avenue. And from there on, I think, as I got to play for Karnataka, when I was 17, as I mentioned, I got to enter the state Pro Bowl. So before that, I actually played this preseason tournament where he was playing as an opportunity for him to get some match practice before his comeback into the Indian team. And I ended up playing that game for Air India, which also played these preseason state tournaments. So in that game, I happened to do well against my own state. Like, I got a 4 for, and I think because he was playing that game, obviously the press had come to see how he was feeling post-game. So he actually spoke about a couple of us in the papers the next day. So it was the first time someone had actually spoken about me. An international player had spoken about me in the papers, but for me, I think that really gave me a lot of confidence because I was like, wow, someone like Anil Kumble thinks I have the potential to go up. And I was just all of 17. So I think that really made a difference. And then as I got to know him during my time in Karnataka and even with Bangalore, because he was the mentor, I think I've been an avid supporter of, how he went about his cricket, because I think no one really tipped him to get 600 plus wickets because it's very unconventional as a leg spinner, right? So him for sure. I think in my mid-20s, I've got to share probably dressing room with some incredible players. But I think in my mid-20s, when I was obviously dealing with the frustrations and all the self-doubt and negativity, probably A.B. de Villiers, I think, having a moment with him in the dressing room, we could connect on our faith, because I still remember my iPod was playing in the dressing room and there was this song. He was like, I'll leave it on, I want to sing it. But then it was also the fact that he had said he just was like, Ryan, you got to make peace with failure. And I think in that mid-20 phase of my life, I think I started being afraid of actually failing. And I think for him to actually say that, this accomplished global cricketer, he was like, the sooner you make peace with failure, like you'll be able to enjoy your cricket again. And I think that really stood with me, and even has stood with me for life, even after moving to Australia as well. And I think I was very fortunate to be able to be in those IPL dressing rooms, because I think there were a lot of great lessons you learn from the foreign cricketers, which probably you don't get to learn from the Indian cricketers as much, just their perspective on life and other aspects as well.
Let's start with some trivia. And this is around the learnings from some legends you have rubbed shoulders with. I'll say the name, you tell me what lesson have you learned from those legends, right? So we'll start with Anil Kumble.
Yeah, I think fighting spirit, cricketing mentor.
Rahul Dravid.
Rahul, probably adaptability, played at different positions when it came to his batting for the country, kept wickets. Work ethics, I still remember, I think he got a double 100 in Multan. And then I think there was videos of him, going back to his underarm drills the next day. And then I think very well-read person. I think very rarely do you actually, in cricketing setups, have people you can have sort of non-cricketing conversations with. He always had a book with him on tour, I remember. So very well-read and very well-spoken. Everyone knows that.
Sachin Tendulkar.
Childhood hero. I think just passion. Like, I think probably the only cricketer I've teared up for. Like, I still remember when he retired in 2013 against West Indies after his 200th test. I had tears in my eyes and I couldn't stop crying. But yeah, just that boyhood passion and energy. Like, I think given a choice, he would still be playing for the country.
Saurav Ganguly.
True Dada of Indian cricket. I think he brought boldness with his leadership of the Indian team. I think prior to that, generally you would have foreign teams who would see India as runovers. I think he brought what India needed at the turn of the century.
Virat Kohli.
Discipline, fitness, madness.
MS Dhoni.
MS Dhoni. So I got to actually cross paths with MS Dhoni twice on the cricket field. One was in fact 2004 when we played the under-19 NCA team versus the India A team before they left for this tri-series in, I think, Kenya, if I'm not mistaken. And everyone was, I think, stunned to hear about MS Dhoni, this batter from Jharkhand with long hair. And that was the first time. And I remember he went on that tour and I think got 300s, which pretty much put him up for selection with the Indian team. And he must have got his opportunity soon after, because I remember Dinesh Karthik was also on that tour and Dinesh played for India soon after. But MS, that was the first time. And then Chennai, my last IPL game, I still remember standing at fine leg and I had one more over to bowl and I was just hoping Daniel Vittori wouldn't throw the ball to me because I could only picture, him hitting me out of the park at Chidambaram Stadium. But yeah, when you think of MS Dhoni, probably calm leadership, incredible finisher. I think street smart tactics. I think just his simplicity.
A.B. de Villiers.
I think as I just summed up just a little while earlier, faith and probably failure, like just that chat that he had about making peace with failure for me. And I think that's a huge part of being an athlete, which sometimes we can overlook.
And finally, Mutaya Muralidharan.
Oh, yeah. Morally, I think superhuman, spin wizard. I mean, 800 odd test wickets, and I think human as well. I think the big thing I've learned from Murali, like we spent a lot of time in 2012 when he got picked by Royal Challengers Bangalore, and he didn't play too many games either. So spent a lot of time, I would say, eating his brains. For me, I think when he picked up the ball, I realized he could pretty much create magic with it. But then at the top of his mark, or sometimes, in the lead up to it, he would say he would be filled with all these negativity and all the, he would be incredibly nervous. And I've actually realized that even Nathan Lyon, who's probably the best off spinner in the game at the moment, I mean, he's an incredibly nervous person by nature. So I was like, oh, wow, this superstar actually it has negative thoughts and feels incredibly nervous. So that was, I think, an opportunity to realize they're all humans after all, and they also go through these, emotions that we feel.
I'm just remembering, you did touch upon it some time back. You were also good at playing prank and in a girl's voice. What is that story?
Sure. Yeah. So I think I still keep saying, I don't know if my voice is cracked fully. Like, I think over the phone, I still sound like a little boy. But like you, I think you've got an incredible talent with singing. So when I was a young boy growing up in a Syrian Christian household, we'd sing a lot. And both my mom and dad would play the guitar for me and sing. So I think that, I suppose, it developed a sort of a falsetto voice. So I enjoyed singing, like Michael Jackson on a girl's voice. And then back in the day, in that, I suppose the early 2000s, not everyone had a mobile phone. So some of the girls, and very few of them actually had girlfriends back then. And one of them got to know that I could speak like a girl. And then he was like, oh, why can you just, make a call to this landline? Because generally you'd have a landline on the other end, and, the dad or the mom would pick up and you have to get, whatever, this XOI's girlfriend on the phone. So I think those couple of years amongst the state team, it was like, oh, Ryan can do this, like, or get him to actually call our girlfriends if we have one. And then it just kind of got viral with when I got into CCI and NCA camps, and players started getting to know that, oh, this is what Ryan can do. And I think there were some really serious pranks which got to the level of one of the boys I remember from Tamil Nadu was like, oh, I need to call the cops. But there's one instance I remember, Lalchand Rajput, who is a former India coach. In fact, he was part of the T20 World Cup when India won for the first time. I remember him calling me to his room this one time. And I was freaking out because I was like, oh, maybe I'm punished or maybe I've done something wrong. And I remember him calling me and he's like, oh, I hear you have a good girl's voice. And I was like, oh, who told you that? And then he was like, because he was from Mumbai and there were these couple of players from Mumbai also in the NCAA. He was like, oh, can you call them up? And I think for a lot of players back then, it was fascinating for them to come to Bangalore because I think, as you know, in Bangalore, English is spoken quite often. And generally amongst girls in Bangalore, because they speak English, there was always this level of, oh, Bangalore girls are actually calling me. So I think, yeah, that was a huge part of my journey, apart from my off spin when I was a young boy. But I don't know at what point it kind of stopped. I think, yeah, I don't know. I suppose as we started to grow up, but yeah, I definitely have been a big prankster. Oh, I don't think I can at all.
Didn't want to put you on spot.
No, my voice, I don't think my voice can actually keep up with that anymore.
Yeah, I'm sure there are many experiences in this journey together. Is there any, I know there was a time when you were on the bench and pretty much not contributing.
Yeah.
At what point you decided to move to Australia after that?
Sure, yeah. I think, so I think the thought of living overseas has always been at the back of my head, as I mentioned, with my parents. So they were actually both born and brought up in East Africa before they moved to India at different points of time. So my dad grew up in Nairobi, Kenya, and he was about 14. I think my mom was in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, till she was about 8. So I think, growing up, I had these childhood memories where they would obviously show us pictures of their time in East Africa and talk about their childhood memories. And then a lot of my family who lived overseas, whenever they came to India as well, like, you'd hear about stories of life overseas. And then also, as my dad started to travel when I was 4 or 5, I'd see these incredible albums he'd bring back of all his pictures. So I think the thought of living overseas was always kind of there. And then cricket started to happen to me. So I don't think it was something I thought that would happen. It just was something that was at the back of my head because I started getting to travel to all these places overseas, but never thought that I would, pretty much push to live there early on. But then as cricket started to probably move in a direction where I felt, I was not actually growing anymore as a person. And, like cricket, I was starting to feel like I was stagnating. Like despite having the IPL contracts, I felt, okay, like am I really where I want to be? And then 2013, in fact, was a year I didn't have an IPL contract, and rightfully so. I thought because in 2013 I got a run of 5 List A games with the Karnataka side, and probably for the first time in my life didn't live up to those standards that was expected of me. So I think, so 2013 when I didn't get an IPL contract, I thought, okay, you know what, if I stuck around in India during that time, I'd actually feel like I want to be out there. I'd probably, probably have all these 100,000 questions floating through my head as to what I could have done better, etc. So I thought the best thing for me at that point of time was probably travel and train in another country. So I came to Australia to train at that point of time for about 3 weeks in 2013. And during that trip, I just felt a different level of peace. But also, I remember like attending church one day when I had come here in 2013. And for me, at that point of time, I just sensed God leading me, saying, why don't you just consider moving to Australia? And so for me, I was like, wait, is that my feeling, or is it just infatuation in the moment, or is this actually a sense that, okay, this is probably the right direction I need to move in? And is that a clear sign from God? So what I did after that trip was, because I'd established these mentor figures in my life, I went back to all of them, like my cricketing mentors, my spiritual mentor, and I said, see, this is what I'm feeling. Like I feel I'm not growing anymore. I feel personally the dream or desire to play Test cricket, because I was about 27 back then, has probably dimmed, and I feel like I've done my time. And I feel with Test cricket not something I feel will happen anymore for me. I don't know whether it's worth actually staying here. And strangely enough, like as I was sharing my feelings with them, all these other aspects of my life which I felt I needed to grow in, everyone said, yes, I think you should go. I think Australia would be great for you. And for me, I just took that as a sign. And then 6 months later, 2014 Jan, in fact, moved to Melbourne for my master's in sports management. So I think, that trip, made me ask myself a lot of questions and address reality that, hey, if it's going to take me another 2 years to potentially see where I'm at in cricket, like, what about these other aspects? And I think, fortunately, my mentor and my manager, he was a Harvard and Oxford product. So I think it always kind of prepared me to start thinking about life outside of sport at 26, 27, because you are going to be a long time retired. So I think that started to kind of started to take effect in my life. And I think, I just made that decision, and 6 months later, moved to Australia. And it was obviously a massive shock to a lot of my cricketing friends. I think my parents also didn't anticipate that I would take that step, but I felt it was the right decision. And I was like, okay, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? I'll get to go back to India and, still have my cricketing network, do something cricket related. But then from another perspective, I was like, there was all these umpteen possibilities that could happen. And I'm just going to take that step of faith and see how I go.
And did you play while you were in Australia, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, so the goal was obviously to pursue my master's and build other aspects of my life. Like I felt spiritually, it was probably the best environment for me to move to mature. But then from a cricket standpoint, because I'd gone through all this idle time of just being on the bench between IPLs, I was like, I just wanted to have that change, but also get back to playing cricket regularly and playing for the love of it without having to have this pressure of performance behind me. And I felt I just needed that. So I started playing just for the joy of it. And then within my first full season in 2014-15 in Melbourne, I had a brilliant season for my club, Hawthorn Monash University back then. And then strangely enough, Trent Woodhill, who was the batting coach of Royal Challengers Bangalore, he was the batting coach, assistant coach for Melbourne Stars. He found out that I'd moved to Australia, and he was like, oh, we're looking for a backup in the Big Bash. And I was like, oh, this is so weird. I was like, why is this happening? Like, I just wanted to play cricket for the fun of it. And then things started to eventuate pretty much from there on. I didn't end up playing the Big Bash and at all in those couple of seasons. But then because I was also not local, I had a student visa, right? So I didn't qualify to play as a local. And as an international, obviously, I didn't bring that brand value. But what actually happened from there was, even though I started playing cricket regularly outside of uni, and after I finished uni, I pretty much got back to playing club cricket where I was getting paid. In 2017, my performances had led to Cricket Victoria, Cricket Australia, and a few accomplished internationals writing letters of support for me to get my permanent residency. So cricket pretty much started to happen after that again, but I think just that change certainly helped me in reestablishing that love for the game that I probably stopped having over the last 3-4 years of my time in India.
And I had a question around the elite cricketers.
Yeah.
So there are so many people who commit themselves. They really work hard.
Yeah.
But what are those few qualities that separate good cricketers from the elite cricketers who have had a long run, who keep going?
Yeah.
What are some of those qualities for the audience who are looking at, cricketing as a career and long-term career? What are some of those qualities that they should be aware of?
Sure. Yeah, I think I always tell my kids this as well, who I coach. Like, I think purely from a skill and physical standpoint, I think there's a saying that great cricketers keep training till they can't get it wrong. Okay, whereas good cricketers do it till they get it right. But I think from an elite perspective, I think the great cricketers also, I think there's a lot of great cricketers which we don't hear about. And there's a lot of cricketers who could have played for the country. Sometimes it's being in the right place at the right time. But I think for me, the big thing is the ones who handle pressure the best, who can handle the head noise. And particularly in India, the ones who can handle pressure, given the 1 billion plus people you have to, please each time. So I think for the ones who can handle pressure and resilience and still pursue their practice or their training and being the best possible sort of frame of mind to be able to deliver each time, day in, day out. So that's why I keep saying, like a guy like a Virat or AB de Villiers as well, like they have a method of madness and you have to have that to actually keep moving forward. Otherwise, it's very hard because, when you get paid to do something, there is pressure that comes with it. So I think the physical and skill aspect, firstly, the discipline to be able to do that day in, day out, but then I think also who handles the head noise the best.
What is the difference between cricketers in India and Australia?
Oh, good question. Yeah, I think having experienced both countries for a decade now, I think I'll talk about the positives because obviously there's aspects which I feel may be subjective to me purely, but I think the big one is India is the cricketing gold mine. Like I think there's a book as well called The Gold Mine Effect, and I think I read that book, I think India is a place you want to be if you want to play cricket, especially early on in your life, because everyone plays cricket on the streets. If you're at an academy, whether you're the average corporate cricketer or club cricketer, you're still training almost every day or at least 3-4 days a week, which probably doesn't happen in Australia as much. Like I think, it's heavily dependent on your private coach or parents taking you. So sometimes kids probably train 1, maybe 2 days a week here during the season. So volume of training is definitely higher in India. I think you play a lot more games in India. But I think from a perspective of Australian cricket, after having experienced it here, I think India and generally I keep saying South Asia is a very result-driven culture. Whereas I think Australia, amongst coaching, I think it's a very good environment as it's very growth-focused. So I think there's a bit more freedom for you to make mistakes and actually for sport to be a positive experience. Apart from that, I think dominant sport with cricket probably getting a lot of importance in India. I think other sports fall way behind, and hopefully that changes in India. But then in Australia, you come across a lot of multi-sport athletes. So a lot of the cricketers who I get to coach as well also play a lot of other sports, which is, I think, great, especially for young kids who are below the age of 13, 14. I think you should play multiple sports. So I think those are some of the big differences. I think once you get into the professional setup, I think there's a lot more pressure to be an Indian cricketer because obviously purely from population and also from the fact that there's probably 8 to 10 other cricketers who are equally good to take your spot. Probably lesser number in Australia, but then also I think there's a freedom once you get in the professional system. And once you get in the professional system, they really sort of take care of you quite well. So it's a very tight unit.
I think we need to also touch upon the fact that it's well rewarding when they play in India, isn't it? A lot of sponsorships and...
Yeah, I think young cricketers particularly have exposure. Like I think of myself alone. Like I had my first contract when I was 16 with SG, and then Nike happened just before I turned, soon after I turned 20. So I think, by God's grace, my parents never had to spend a pie after I was 16 for cricket. Like pretty much everything came inwards. Whereas I think, so a lot of kids get those contracts and stuff early because obviously you have companies and all these brands trying to invest in you pretty early before you become that established player. Whereas in Australia, like I think it's challenging for young cricketers because I only learned pretty recently that under 19 cricketers or even under 17 state cricketers still don't get paid match allowance. So I think there is that part. But once you play professionally, I think the rewards are great. India is definitely, as you know, revenue-wise in the last, since the establishment of the IPL, like I think purely from a revenue standpoint, India is way ahead and everyone wants to be a part of the Indian cricketing community now, whether it's the IPL or the WPL or be involved in cricket, at least when it comes to a professional standpoint. So yeah, there's the rewards with both aspects, but I think Australia is pretty great in terms of the fact that you get state contracts here, which you don't have in India. So,
talking about the formats, what is your favorite format?
Oh, to play or to watch?
To play.
Yeah, I think, I grew up before the IPL and played a lot of my early state cricket when no one knew the IPL was going to come around. So any day state test cricket, like I think given a choice, I'd still love to train for 4 or 5 hours a day. And I think I grew up in that high volume environment. And I think it's just the discipline around state cricket, test cricket back then. Like obviously it's a different brand of test cricket we see now because of the influence of T20 cricket. So for me, yeah, test cricket without a doubt, like given a choice to train as well. Like I'm that person who loves to train the whole day if I could. So without a doubt, test cricket.
So we'll talk about your training academy, but one of the questions that was in my mind is, I wanted to know, do you see the landscape of cricket changing in Australia? You have more, kids from Southeast Asian communities dominating in the international format, representing Australia. Do you think that landscape is going to change in the next couple of years?
You'd hope so. So I think obviously like Usman Khawaja is obviously a great brand for the South Asian culture. And we've seen Alana King pretty recently in the Women's World Cup, like stand out as the best bowler. So I think she's also from an Anglo-Indian background. So I think as Australia starts to grow as a multicultural society, you'd hope that you'd see a lot more South Asian kids or kids from other, I suppose, non-Australian communities, because I think especially the younger age group level, you see a lot of them play underage state cricket, etc. But then beyond that, I think there's challenges. I think a combination of parents obviously fearing, but then what if you don't have studies or what if you don't have a backup plan? So I think a lot of parents at that juncture where kids are, in their crossroads deciding whether they should pursue cricket or pursue studies, I think a lot of them end up pursuing the study, the safety aspect of it. But I think we'd hope that would change, because I think it's probably the greatest country to also, if you manage your time quite well, because we get so much time compared to if you had to live in India and spend a lot of time in traffic. So I think if you manage your time really well, I think South Asian or even a lot of multicultural societies will have those opportunities. I think we're seeing a lot of South Asian people in the Australian setup as well. Like you've got obviously Usman Khawaja currently, but then you have guys like Jason Sangha, who's captained the Under-19 World Cup squad for Australia. And then we have Harjas Singh, who, pretty much came to prominence after that triple century pretty recently in grade cricket. So you'd hope you'd see a lot more players establish themselves. And I think there's a girl as well. I think Hasrat Gill, or I think, she plays for Melbourne Stars, if I'm not mistaken. Or Sydney Thunder, sorry. But I think, so it's good to see people from other cultures. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Indians are the fastest growing community in Australia as well. So, I think the big thing is it would be dependent on parents and whether they see other professions as also opportunities for their kids to grow, especially their kids leaning towards those abilities.
Now, how about we talk about your training academy, Fortitude?
Yeah.
Give us some background, how it started and how you're shaping the future of the budding cricketers.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I think, I've always known that at some point when cricket's going to wind up, that I would move towards coaching, because I've always been passionate about teaching. Like my mom used to get me to teach 6th and 7th standard students when I was in year 10. So teaching has always been something I've been passionate about. And then as you get to play cricket and be in the professional setup, you always get to interact with these young cricketers in India. And, as you know, in India, they treat you like God, like cricket. So you get to mentor a lot of them and stuff. So I think that's always been something I've been passionate about. And then when I moved to Sydney in 2019, I'd started coaching a couple of young kids privately. And then in 2020, like obviously COVID hit, and I just finished my first full year of, a regular job, as I would say, from 9 to 5. And I was starting to think about, okay, how do I actually really want to coach, and, what space is coaching going to take up in my life? And also if I'm still trying to have a crack with cricket for a couple of years here in Sydney, like, what windows do I have outside of work, family time? My wife and I just got married then in 2020. So then we were trying to address all of that. And then, in fact, she threw up the idea saying, why don't you start something of your own? And that's how Fortitude Cricket was born. The name was established purely out of a TV show I used to watch back in the early 2000s called One Tree Hill, where this agent running the sports management company called his agency Fortitude. And I just thought that name kind of sat well with me because it means courage in the midst of adversity. And I think I've had to actually be courageous in a lot of chapters in my life or my cricketing career. And then I've just felt that's something cricketers are going to experience when they play sport, and particularly around cricket as well, because everyone's fighting for that one spot. So I just thought that was a good name to have. And then that's how it pretty much was born. And then from there on, I was like, okay, what do I really want to do with Fortitude? And I just didn't want it to be another academy that was purely based on numbers. So then I set it up like a boutique academy. I just felt that was what was going to work best for me if relationships and mentoring was going to be my priority, because I felt like if I restricted it to 15, maybe max 20 kids, I'd be able to put myself in each of their shoes week on week. And then that way there's consistency in relationships. So that's how it was born. And yeah, it's been going pretty strong since then. And I think, as I mentioned, big focus for me is mentoring. So it's not just about excellence on the field, but also how are they building their life off the field to wherever they want to be.
How difficult it was for you to adjust in a full-time job coming from cricketing background?
Yeah.
Or can we say that some of the skills you learned as a cricketer, it was easy for you to transition to the corporate culture? What would be the right statement?
Sure. So, 2019, moved to Sydney purely because my wife and family had grown up here. So it was just easier for me to pack my bags when I've lived on the road and actually start a new life. So I knew I was going to start working because I wasn't going to choose to go over to England or Netherlands for another summer of cricket there, because I'd got to the stage where I had to apply for my Australian citizenship. So I was like, okay, I have to start work at some point in time. Otherwise, I'm going to get to a stage where it's too late and I wouldn't know how to work. So I remember I started working in Sydney, and initially started working actually for the council where I was doing community engagement and sales. And I remember that first year, because in my head, I was like, okay, if I'm going to play cricket, this is going to be my schedule. And it was pretty much like the same schedule I would have if I was a full-time professional athlete. But then to fit in 40 hours of work, I think by the end of that year, that first full year of work, like I think the discipline and the time management and the ability to keep showing up even when you don't want to do it, those were aspects that I could take from cricket into work. But then you still don't know what's going to hit you when you actually start that first year of transition. And I think that first full year of work exhausted me, both mentally. I think physically, I felt like I had these plans of training X amount of days, but then I wouldn't be able to train that many days. So I think I was just exhausted. And I keep saying, even though like I know COVID was a massive time for everyone globally, and I think for me, I just felt personally at that point of time, it was a blessing in disguise, because I got this time to actually just sit back and actually reflect on that last year of work. So transition was actually very hard, like it is for a lot of, I think, cricketers or athletes who know that they have to do something at some point. But then it also, I think, gave me some time to understand, okay, you know what, the tough year is actually over. And I think since then, I've been able to move into the finance space. I've always loved mathematics, numbers, and I get to teach from a perspective of, teach about, people about financial literacy in general. So I think that's been very good, because I'm getting to do what I love, but then from a perspective of having gone through that hard year first, and then of course the cricketing skills get added on. Like I get to teach not just in my corporate role, but also from a perspective of with cricket over the weekend. And then there's the other aspects, whether you bring in your teamwork, there's patience, there's discipline, there's leadership, which I think like you have to kind of be able to connect and speak at times and take bold steps of faith. So but I think transitions always hard. And if there's any young cricketers out there who who are on the verge of finishing up with professional cricket, like you'll get through it.
Eventually you get through.
Yeah.
Look, we can go on, but I would like to end it with one final question. You have seen the demands of life of a cricketer.
Yeah.
What are some of your suggestions / advice to the youngsters who want to take cricket as a full-time career?
Do it. But if I did sum up a few things, I think there's a lot of, external factors. I think a term I use is control the controllables. So the first thing, if you really love the game, you'll turn up every day. Like if you love something, you'd want to do it as often as possible. Especially there'll be days when it's hard. Like once you get to be a professional cricketer, and you'll realize that sometimes it's not necessarily as fun as it was when you first started. So love what you do because it'll make it easy on those hard days. Second, work incredibly hard. You cannot get to anywhere without working hard. Then I would say from working hard, work smart. Whether it's putting yourself in environments where once you have a foundation in place, where you're, I suppose, amongst better cricketers. Like I'm a firm believer in this statement where you are an average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So put yourself in an environment where you're the least skilled, and then be comfortable competing. I think I always say young kids here in Australia don't play as many matches as probably we played growing up. So definitely be ready to compete. And then I suppose stay curious and be coachable. A huge aspect. Even once you get to be a professional cricketer, I think the cricketers who can actually stay curious and be coachable and continue to learn and evolve as the game changes will go, far. And then I think, failure is inevitable. Be comfortable with failing. Like you'll probably fail more times than you actually succeed as an elite athlete. And a lot of times, as you know, when you get to be a professional cricketer, your failure is also in a public space. So you will be scrutinized a lot, but just take it as, something that's part of your job.
What an amazing conversation, Ryan. Thank you for giving us not just the cricket stories, but also crucial lessons like resilience, humility, and passion. Your journey from Indian domestic cricket and the IPL to developing future stars in Australia shows that the game is bigger than a scorecard. It's all about character. To every young cricketer listening, dreams demand discipline, patience, and belief. Learn from journeys like Ryan's, stay consistent, and never lose your love for the game. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a young athlete, coach, or a parent. And don't forget to subscribe to Rack the Brain channel for more such inspirational conversations. Thank you very much.